Hey there, thanks for tuning in for the third video on resound. This is getting to be really exciting for me to do these, as I figured as I get ideas or inspirations on things to do things that I would normally do in private one-on-one lessons. I'd like to include some of that stuff here. It's not always going to be me talking about me. I want to share information as well. So while I was outside doing some work on this lovely day that we had today, I got a text message from a student who asked, he said, for our next lesson, can you show me how to make a guitar solo? Now, this is all Zoom-based stuff, or FaceTime, or Facebook Messenger. We're doing those things as well. But I said, sure, and it was a really exciting idea. I've been asked the question thousands of times, well, maybe not thousands, hundreds anyways. I've been teaching 25 years now, and I've heard a lot of good questions, a lot of dumb questions, and a lot of good questions. But one of the big things that a lot of people who finally start to find themselves advancing in their playing, meaning they're starting to attain some of their goals, like they can play the songs that they've wanted to learn how to play. Maybe they've learned a couple of riffs that they've wanted to learn how to play. Inevitably, what a lot of people want to do is start to create music. So when somebody asks, how do I make a guitar solo, I like to bring things back to food analogies a lot of the time. If you know me, you know that's true. And it's like, okay, well, how do I make a guitar solo? It's like, how do I make pizza? Well, there's a few things you need to start out with. Bread dough of some kind. Probably some kind of sauce. Maybe you want to go red sauce. Maybe you want to go bechamel. Maybe you want to go Alfredo. Whatever you want to do. And then all the toppings on there. And we're not going to get into the pineapple on pizza debate. I myself dig it. So when you get into how to make a guitar solo, it's like how to make a pizza. You need to start with certain things. The certain things you need to make a guitar solo are knowing the key that you're in. Whether you know how to read music or not is completely beside the point right now. You have to know the key. Meaning, what are the notes in the scale? What are all the chords in the scale? If you've written a song, say, that's just has 2 chords or something like that, what are the notes in those chords? Where do they come from in the scale? And then from there, you can start to create a melody. And this is where I like to get people to take this huge leap for them and say, okay, here's your scale. I'm going to play your chord pattern. Now you play the scale with it. And they'll be like, what do I do? And I've had some folks who are like terrified at this point, and some who happily jump in and just start placing notes all over the place, whether they belong or not. Now, whether they belong or not is just a matter of whatever the chords are and where they those notes happen to fall. So if you just play up and down a scale, it might not always fit with the chords that are being played, but it might just be that you should have let one note ring a little longer, or another note shorter, or skipped a certain note and gone to the next one. And this applies to bass too. Bass is my big thing. I think like a bass player all the time. When I write a song, I write it around the sound of the bass for the most part. And in the album I have coming out, and maybe some of the stuff you've heard I've done before, it's very bass forward. That was my first big inspiration was Jaco Pastorius. And how do you not get inspired by that sound when you first hear it as a kid? But anyway, so bass is another thing. So how to play a guitar solo. So let's take a key. A lot of people always go for the common guitar keys. They'll say like A or D. Let's pick F. relative to my favorite key in the whole wide world. So here's an F scale. It goes F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. Within there, any of those notes that you played have a certain distance from the first note you played. That distance from F to G is called a second, because you went from the first to the second note of the scale. These are called intervals. The distance from F to A is called a third, because A is the third note of the scale. Always start on the first note that you're playing to find the distance. So F to A, you don't go F, or you don't go F, G, A, because that is the wrong interval. You go F, and then you go G, A, right? So if you're going F to A, it's a third. So what you need to do is start to familiarize yourself with a key. Whether you have perfect pitch or disgusting pitch, whatever you want to call it, I don't care if you know how to sing well. Everybody sings, and everybody does it. Whether they do it well is totally beside the point. Just like reading music, you need to know your stuff. It doesn't matter how you learn it. It just matters that you learn it. So sing through your scale when you're playing it. Even if you're not doing very well at singing it, it doesn't matter. You're not practicing with a tuner to learn how to sing, although practicing singing scales will help you become a better singer. It helped me. I'm no great singer, but I do what I can when I need to do it. So you sing along with your scale, and then eventually that part of your brain that's singing all day long, whether you're in the shower or putting on your socks first thing in the morning, driving to work, cooking supper, going, stirring a pot, you just sang some notes that belong to a key. Not that you have to pick up the names of those notes, but what you do is you go back to the scale you've been working on and go, It's close enough. So you could call it the pot stirring song. And you go, da 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 da. So what are you making for supper? What should we make? We were talking about sauces before. Let's make pasta sauce. So you go, I am putting in the onions. So I am putting in the onions. So there you just took a really ridiculous concept and brought it down into just whoosh, here's some hardcore information on your instrument. And you're like, whoa, I guess that just happened. But whether it's like a ridiculous idea of writing a song about putting onions in a pot to cook pasta is irrelevant. You just took what's a really heavy-duty, big deal, hardcore music theory concept and made it very real for yourself. So that's the thing about when somebody asks, how do I make a guitar solo? What I like to ask them to do is learn how to play like you. And that's a big question. If somebody were to say, hey, Mark, how can you show me how to play like you? I could show them some of my favorite kind of chord patterns. I used to play a lot with altered tunings. I really dig modal melodies, like melodies that play out somewhat outside of the key, but still belong to the key. I kind of like approach it with the discipline of a classical player, the freedom of a jazz player, and the sensitivity of a vocalist. I don't know. For me, everything has to have melody. If it doesn't have melody, then you're missing something. And that's why, you get guys that tune their drums, right? They're sensitive to that. They care. So whether I'm playing a bass part or a guitar part, it has to have something melodic in it. Whether that melody stretches out over 4 beats or 4 minutes, it doesn't matter. The listener will get it. And so somebody can say, okay, well, how can you show me how to draw a melody out to 4 minutes? I'm like, well, I can't teach you how to be me, nor could I teach you how to play as if you were Bach or somebody. I could show you how to play a Bach piece and we could work on it, but I can't teach you how to think like Bach. It's not possible. I think he carried a backpack with an extra couple brains in it, honestly. He is musical hero for me of the highest order. So how to play like you take these simple melodies that are floating around in your head and you learn how to play them. And whether you think you're singing well or not, again, is irrelevant. When you're singing notes, they belong to a key. If you're singing notes that don't belong to a key, you'll sound really bad. Even people that aren't musicians or players or they're just absolute beginners, they can always recognize a wrong note. And it's like, why do you recognize a wrong note if you don't know what the right one should have been? Because you've been exposed to these patterns all your life. From the time you're a baby, somebody sang to you. You heard music on the radio or TV, or your folks listening to music. You heard the right notes being played. And then suddenly when you hear them not being played, you're like, oh, that's kind of gross. And that's how you start to understand what music should sound like. And I think that's what draws a lot of people away from jazz, is jazz implores you to stretch your listening ability outside of the key, through the key in snaky ways, changing keys, and it's more than some people can handle, and that's totally cool. Not everybody likes Picasso. Not everybody likes really complex, layered flavors in their food. So when you get into creating music, you got to know what you want to create. You have to have an idea of what you want to create. Are you going to be, Jackson Pollock, or are you going to be Maxfield Parrish? It's a big difference. But there's equally impassioned lovers of each one. So for music, you have to know what you want to do. If you don't know what you want to do, you'll end up being one of those finger wigglers who learns, a pentatonic scale. One of the first things that anybody that plays guitar really gets good at, and then they learn, those. Now that was me making fun of introductory level pentatonic riffs. I can do more with it. But that's the idea, is that they would get a hold of this pentatonic scale and feel like they've found the Holy Grail, because what they played fit with the chords that they were hearing. But if you take that same scale and try and put it into another song of a different genre in the same key, it won't fit anymore. So people get stuck in boxes. They become musical parrots. They only can play what they've heard. A parrot, you can't have a conversation with a parrot. It just says words. It may say words that it's heard together that seem like it makes sense to repeat. But sit down with the parrot and say, so how you doing? It'll just say some words. Come back the next day and say, so parrot, what did you think of that news broadcast last night? It may say the same thing again. It doesn't know what it's saying. It just knows how to say what it's heard. I've been there, as many other people. That's kind of like being a musical parrot, is not pushing yourself to understand or to try or want to understand how you play. It's a really big deal. There's nothing wrong with doing simple riffs. Simple riffs have made some of the most amazing, incredible, long-lasting music, mega hits. But it's not that you want to get complicated with it. It's how do you want to play like you? And when it comes to making a guitar solo, you have to know where to go. So you learn your scale, you learn your notes, you learn how to sing along with the scale, the distances between the notes, and then just let your right brain groove with it for a while. Just play it. Don't wonder about the theory. Don't get bogged down in wondering if what you're playing is right. Stick to the notes and just make a melody. And then hopefully if you're working with a good instructor, or you have some other musician friends who are kind of savvy, you can play them the melody and say, what chords go with this? Maybe they'll show you, and maybe right then a song is born. So I know I kind of go in circles with these things, and that's kind of the point. I don't like scripting things. I don't want to be just sitting here reading things. This is kind of like how I like to talk to people in the context of their lessons. I mean, obviously with more back and forth playing. But it's like, question, answer. It goes both ways. They can ask me a question, I'll answer it, and then give them another question that they'll have to pursue to answer it themselves. And it could be that they get it in like 4 seconds, or it could be that they get it in 4 months. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that they got it. So for today's video, I'm not going to do these every day, but for this installment of video number 3, we'll leave it at that. Take a melody, sing it, learn how to play it. Whether you're a beginner player or not, if it has a kind of dark sound, if you're into Metallica and stuff like that, chances are you're in a minor key. Learn a minor scale. Learn a major scale. See which one tickles your fancy. Sing along with it. Put some words to those notes that you're singing. Sing them. Don't worry about the theory yet. Note names you can get later. Interval naming you can get into later. Harmonies you can get into later. It all is based on knowing the very simple thing of a scale, sing, even if you sing like crap, and do it over and over and over and over until what you've come up with is a melody that sounds like you, which is a really, really cool thing to do. So for now, I'm going to leave it there. If you have any questions or comments, leave them, please. If you're a really nice person, you might click like on this if you've made it this far. If you want to subscribe, that would be so cool. I'll post these things on my personal Facebook page and my Resound Facebook page. I'm also on TikTok, doing little 1-minute music things. So I hope you will have derived some inspiration from this, and maybe if you've been putting off learning some scales and stuff like that, or if you've wanted to get into soloing, you'll have taken some inspiration from it. And this is just scratching the surface. By all means, don't assume this is the end of it. There's a lifetime of things to get into at this point. Scale, key, notes, sing. That's your first steps with this. So next time I post something, I have no idea what it will be. This idea just struck me today while I was out there mashing up stuff with the chainsaw, and thought it'd be a good topic because it was timely and keeps coming up a lot. So I've cut this video quite short compared to the other ones. So before I find another topic to ramble on about, I'm going to call it quits there. So subscribe, they're on the thing there somewhere, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much for watching.